Okay. Hi, Jenny. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So I see your giant book cover behind you.
This is actually the real book. This is, if you open it, there are pages. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it's hard to get a sense of size on a video.
Yeah,
So is that just like a
this is the
giant
actual
poster?
book,
That's the
the
actual
size
book.
of my face. Yeah, so this one is real. That one I was kidding. This one's a poster.
That's a poster. Okay.
This is the real book.
Okay. How many books have you written?
This is my second book. So my debut, Hood, which you can see right here behind me, came out last June 2020. And then this book, Curse of the Spectre Queen, comes out June 2021. And then the next book in the series, which the title has not been revealed yet, but will be soon, comes out in 2022. So I just got done turning in the third book to my editor. So that's not out yet, but I guess I count that as three books.
Is this a series?
It is, yes. So Curse of the Spectre Queen is the first book in a series. It's an archaeological action adventure series that's perfect for fans of Indiana Jones, National Treasure, The Mummy. And I know all of that because I am a fan of all those things, which is why I wrote the book.
Yeah, I like those kind of movies too. National Treasure is great. I really
Oh my
enjoyed
gosh.
that. Yeah.
There is a whole sequence in Curse of the Spectre Queen that is directly inspired by National Treasure. So if that's your thing, you'll know it as soon as you hit it.
Okay, on your bio it says that you used to be an indie publisher.
I worked at an independent publisher. Yeah. So when I graduated college, I worked at an independent publisher in Austin, Texas. And they mostly did nonfiction, business, and self help, but they also did some fiction as well. So it was really my first foray into learning about the publishing environment, which was a really great education for somebody coming right out of college who couldn't afford to move to New York.
And I want to talk just a little bit about publishing in general, if you don't mind, because I think a
Sure.
lot of people that are aspiring authors get a little overwhelmed with all the choices that are available these days.
Yes,
In the
definitely.
in the old days, you would write a book and then shop it around to a publisher and hope that they would pick it up.
Yeah.
Now I know of at least three different types of publishers. There's the big five in New
Hmm.
York. Then there's these sort of hybrid publishing companies, which do some things for you, but then they charge a la carte for like the cover and different things like that. And then there's basically self publishing, which you take everything on your own, but you have complete control over your over your destiny. And
Right.
yeah,
Then
so
you're in charge of all of it
and
too.
you're in charge of all it and you're responsible for all of it.
Yeah.
So the place that you worked at, was it one of the hybrid types?
It was, yeah. So it was they had a lot of connections to traditional distribution, and we had in-house marketing teams. We had a whole production and design team, but because of the type of clients that we had, who were usually people who brought their own platform, so they were speakers or business people. They were people who could sell the book through, but they needed a well-packaged book. That's often who we would work with. So they would pay for those services, but they would get a book that looked like it belonged on the shelf at Barnes and Noble, but they could sell it back a room, and they ended up keeping a much greater percentage of their royalties. Well, they kept 100% because we didn't own the IP. And so that was a great way for people who had existing platforms to get a book made without having to give away a huge chunk of their royalties when they were the ones bringing the audience.
Well, again, okay, that is important, I think, on any level for any product.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that are already well established in one particular area. And when they write a book about whatever it is, they sort of have built in distribution already. If they have hundreds of thousands of followers on their social media, it's pretty easy
Mm-hmm.
to put up an ad, say, hey, here's my new book. And I think you're going to guarantee to get a few sales for that. For somebody who has no following and who just like put out a book, okay, well, then let me ask
It's
you,
me.
which route did you go?
So I went traditional. So Curse of the Spectre Queen is published by Hyperion, which is a Disney imprint. And that's usually what you'll more commonly see with fiction writers is they don't usually go hybrid. They'll either go the, traditional big five publishers, which Disney's not technically one of the big fives, the way that people count them, but they're still, a major publisher. But you've got the traditional route, and then you've got fully self-pub, which is like, the Kindle, it's like KDP, I think is what they call it, where you just publish it direct as an ebook or whatever it may be. And I think those two routes tend to be the way that fiction goes, because doing a hybrid model for fiction where you're trying to get into bookstores and compete with Simon & Schuster and Penguin Random House and that level of publisher, you just, as an independent publisher, it's almost impossible to compete with the resources and the access that those publishers have in a bookstore setting. But on the flip side, if you are a fast writer and you're a clean writer and you're cranking out, like romance or mystery or cozy thrillers, and you can do those, some people do them like every month, which that blows my mind that people can write a book in a month. But if you are able to sort of consistently produce and you're offering them at a competitive price point, then for a lot of those people, self-publishing makes sense because they can make so much more money and they have more control over the artistry of it, and they have a quicker pipeline because publishing is not a fast industry. So I think that's what you see with fiction, is people tend to go one way or the other.
Okay. Well, theoretically, if you get to a traditional publisher, they're going to pay you up front, right? At least they used to.
Yes, yeah, that's typically that was my experience, that they'll pay you in advance up front against royalties.
Right.
And then as your book sells and it earns royalties, it sort of pays back against that advance. And then the goal is always to earn out your advance. It doesn't always happen, but that's always the goal, is to earn out and start earning royalties on specific book sales.
I know a musician who got a similar deal with a record label, and when it was all said and done, he ended up owing them $100,000. So it doesn't always work out, does it?
It's true. You don't owe back advances for books, though. That is the good news.
Oh.
Unless you don't deliver. So if you don't deliver, if you don't deliver a manuscript they accept, then that gets gnarly. But if you pay the advance and it doesn't end up earning out, you don't owe them back that money. That's like the gamble that they take on you, is offering that advance, thinking, oh, it will at least earn this much money in sales. So,
well, that's more fair. I didn't know that. I didn't know that they wouldn't come after you for the rest of the advance. Yeah.
No, not unless you don't deliver. If you sell something and you end up at odds with them creatively and you decide to part ways and they don't publish the book, then at that point you might be on the hook for it. But no, if it gets accepted and it gets published and it's out,
you're good. You're safe. Yeah.
Yeah.
You brought up another point that I wanted to cover real quick, is the idea of the genre, because traditional publishing houses are much more fussy about genre, where if you're self-published, you can make up your own genres.
Yeah.
Right? So if you submit a book and they say, well, we can't figure out where to put this in a genre, can you cut this bit out or rewrite this bit, is that sort of breach of contract with them? Or at that point they haven't even accepted the book, so it's...
Yeah, so I think genre is really, when it comes to traditional publishing, genre is really about where to shelf a book in a bookstore. So it's about, and that really comes down to the consumer. If you wrote, a romance, but it's also a sci-fi thriller, then you kind of want to capture people who want all of those things, but sometimes those genres can get really narrow and specific, and there's not shelf space for that in every single bookstore. And so I think what most publishers try to do is they try to aim for, like, what's the top level genre here? Is it a romance first and foremost, and then does it subcategorize under a sci-fi fantasy, or is it a sci-fi fantasy that just has romantic elements? And so I think that most people, I would guess, right towards an idea of genre. At the most, they're like melding two genres together. But most people who are writing for the market kind of understand that they need to know who they're writing for, and so that they can sort of package and sell it accordingly.
Well, that's true. And I think traditional publishers still run with about 5 or 6 major genres, where if you go into the self-publishing, I think there's about 500 different genres
Yeah.
that's out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's quite different because self-publishing is it's generally digital, so it's it's unlimited access. You don't have to worry about shelf space or brick and mortar locations like you do at the bookstore. So yeah, you can get really nitty gritty. You can get into some, which I think that's like a lot of what fan fiction does too. Fan fiction, they get like really great. Like they get into the tropes of it's like enemies to lovers, or there's only one bed, or whatever the trope that they're talking about may be. Like that's how they sell fan fiction. But you're kind of seeing that. I see that come into, particularly in young adult, which Curse of the Spectre Queen is a young adult novel, that they tend to sell things based on almost like fan fiction terms, because that's so much of what these like new younger generations are used to. They're used to reading fan fiction online. And so when they come to even a traditionally published book, they're looking for that same reading experience that they get from fan fiction. So you're kind of starting to see, like, you went from traditional and then people went to self-publishing, and now you're kind of seeing self-publishing and fan fiction come back and influence what gets sold and what gets popular in traditional publishing.
We've got about 1 minute left. Can you give us a 1-minute synopsis of your lead character in your book?
Yes, I would love to. So the book, like I said, is an archaeological action adventure series. So the main character, Samantha Knox, is a code cracking, puzzle loving, book repairing, aspiring archaeologist. And she starts out the book working in an antique bookshop where for her best friend's father, and she's sort of living this small, quiet life with dreams of more. And then she gets a mysterious book at her shop that includes a coded letter. And the letter has clues to the location of a missing relic that supposedly can raise the Celtic goddess of the dead. But Sam quickly realizes that she's not the only one who's interested in this book, because somebody burns down her shop and steals the book. So she and her friends have to go on an adventure to Dublin, Ireland during the Roaring 20s to try and find this missing relic and stop the people who burned down her shop from raising the goddess of death and bringing about the end of the world. So it's got curses and kisses and relics and rituals and mystery and murder. What more could you want?
I think I would satisfy me. Yeah, absolutely.
It's perfect. If you love Indiana Jones, National Treasure, The Mummy, Dan Brown, and the Da Vinci Code, perfect for people who love those kind of stories.
Great. And the book is, did you say it was out now? Or it's coming?
It's out June 1st, so it comes out on Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay.
It's upcoming Tuesday, yeah.
Great. Well, we do have to wrap this up. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
I do. So my website is just jennyeldermoke.com. So it's my name. I don't know if you can see here. I'll show you on the book cover. jennyeldermoke.com. Okay. And that's got all the information for what my books are, where you can buy them, reviews, and all kinds of things that you could want to know about me.
Great.
So,
well, thank you for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you, and nice talking to you.
Yes, I'm so happy. Thank you for having me.